to order.
Individual speaker would be limited to a presentation total of 3 minutes. When addressing the trustees via Zoom, phone, or in chambers, please state your name and county in which you reside for the record. Please address the trustees as a whole through the chair. If participating via Zoom, select the Participants tab and click the Raise Hand icon. If you're using a phone, please press *9 to raise your hand. When your turn arrives, you will hear that you have been unmuted. If you are participating in person at chambers, please complete a speaker card identifying the item on which you wish to speak and provide your completed card to the clerk prior to consideration of the item. Speaker cards are available on the table at the entrance to the chambers. Okay. There appears to be no public comment.
Thank you, Victor. So as there is no public comment, we will move to the consent agenda. And these are items that we usually approve as a group, 4.1 and 4.2. Is there a motion to approve the items on the consent agenda?
A motion to approve the items on consent agenda.
Is there a second?
I second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The consent agenda is approved. Now we will move on to the regular agenda. First item, 5.1, is an update regarding debris removal and levee repair. So we will hear from Steve Loop. Good evening, Steve.
All right, good evening, trustees. Steve Loop, Public Works Administrator for the county. We'll jump to item 5.1. So regarding the debris removal, county did coordinate with CAL FIRE, and they found one curtain burner that could possibly be used for the last remaining debris pile to be burned, but it's not working currently. So what they've agreed to do is just to meet us on site and coordinate the burn pile. And we want them with us for that one because, and obviously the property owner as well, because that last debris pile, it's kind of near an old walnut orchard with a lot of trees. So that's why we wanted to use the curtain burner. So we're just gonna have to make sure that it's just watched a lot closer when we burn that pile. So I forgot the gentleman's last name, but I was supposed to get in contact with Bryce. I forgot his last name, somebody this week. Bryce Munzer. Oh, good. Thank you, Madison. Bryce Munzer. That is correct. Bryce Munzer. So, and coordinate a couple folks to come out to that site. So I will do that probably Wednesday through Friday this week and see what he says. And according to their chief, George Cortez, he thinks it should be fine. We might have to ask the property owner if we can remove a few more trees to be safe, but we'll just, whatever the fire folks say, we'll just follow their lead and hopefully get the last pile burned up soon. And then on the levee repairs, I have been contacting an environmental person who is helping us with the mitigation monitoring plan, which is part of the permit. However, basically we need some input from this environmental person to help us complete the mitigation monitoring plan, which is kind of the environmental piece of the levee repairs. And she hasn't gotten back to me. I call her at least once a week. So as soon as I get some input from her in that, then we can submit the plan to Trustee Schrader to sign. And we have the fee ready to go, which is about $2,800 to submit. So that's the status of the levee repairs. We still have the last 4 to 8 feet roughly to finish, to complete out there, I would say. The top part of the levee that was washed out. So that's the status on item 5.1. So I'll pause for public comment and trustee questions.
So if I understand correctly, Steve, on the levee repair, on this mitigation monitoring plan, we're waiting for one person to call you back. Is this someone who works for the water board, or is this
No, this is a consultant that we work
consultant?
with. So who's kind of doing some, I guess, pro bono work. Basically, the mitigation monitoring plan for the levee, according to the water board, is perform some planting on one side, which we're going to say is pollen planting on the property owner side if they choose to do that still. And then on the levee side, it's really just hydro seeding. And then we have to say how often we're going to monitor the hydro seeding and if we're going to water the hydro seeding. So that's the extent of the mitigation monitoring plan. We just need a little input because public works engineering folks are not great with environmental type of things like that. So,
Is there any other consultant that we could consult?
Well,
How expensive would that be?
I think at this point, I just need a few questions answered and then we can submit the plan. And I think it'll be fine. That's my 2 cents. So to start over, one way or another, I'll get a hold of her. And I think she's actually on vacation for a week or maybe 2 weeks or maybe 10 days, actually, somewhere in there. So I just need to get a hold of her. And I think we'll get there so we can submit it. So.
I mean, what's the worst that would happen if we submitted it without her input? It would get kicked back to us? Is that what would happen?
Right. And, the water board said, submit your plan, submit the mitigation monitoring plan. We could just submit it and move on with life, and hopefully they say it's okay because it's so basic, and maybe we just do that if the trustees want me to do that. I mean, in my opinion, it's pretty straightforward, but so we can just submit the plans as is. How about this? If I can't get a hold of her in the next couple of days, I'll talk to some of our planners here at the county staff because they can help too, actually. They've seen a bazillion mitigation monitoring plans on different projects and they can provide input. So one way or another, I think per your suggestion, if you three agree, we can just submit the plan and submit the project, and I think it'll be okay. So.
Okay. Well, I don't know. Do the other trustees have some input?
I have a question. So this mitigation, it's part of that planting and the seeding and all that. There's going to be a charge for that?
I apologize. The charge is when you submit the permit, and forgive me if I'm wrong, it's between $2,500 and $3,000, I think. But just to submit the plans and the permit to the water board, it's their processing fee. That's the fee I was referring to.
Okay.
So, and then to perform the hydro seeding, when they say, okay, so we have a native seed, we have a nice plant that's not invasive that is just chosen for the side of the levee. And so that will be a little bit of a cost, if that's your question.
It kind of is, because I remember thinking about 12, 15 years ago, there was a grant, I think it's from NCRS.
NRCS.
NRCS, and they came by and provided plants for the side of the levee, free of charge.
That would be wonderful. Actually, that's not a bad idea because I've been coordinating with another gentleman from NRCS, our local person, and that's actually a really good idea. That's not on the plans right now, but since we haven't submitted them yet, if I can reach out to James at NRCS and see if they just would help plant whatever we need planted. So I'll do that. Okay.
I just remember that we had over 100 plants delivered to my house, and I had all my kids just planted all along the
Yeah,
levee.
that's a great idea, actually. I didn't think of that. I was just going to put generic hydro seed, which actually would cost probably $4 or $5 maybe more, just a hydro seed. So if we could save,
This
I'll
other
reach out
one
to
is
James.
like coyote bush and all the whatever native is to this area.
Okay, that's a great idea. I'll ping James and it'd be a real quick change too. It's just, calling out this hatch on the plans and it says, this is what we plan to plant for, mitigation. And that would be good. That could save the district some money actually. So. Thank you.
No questions. So do we want to give direction to Steve then regarding submitting this application without input from this environmental consultant? How long have you been waiting?
Still have to.
Just actually, I think it was the beginning of September when I reached out to her. So I think it was after the last meeting. So it's only been 3 weeks. And like I said, she might have been out for about 10 days. But yeah, so it hasn't been that long in their defense, but so.
And if they were to work on it or anything like that, about what time? Because I remember when we had everything delivered, it was January. And we were out there in the cold and in the rain, but we were planting.
Oh, so 2 things. For step 1 is just to get the water board to bless the project and the plan. And when it actually occurs, that's a great question. We'll have to schedule it with folks to plant. But that'll be step 2. So I think the question is, should we just submit the plans as is? I'll talk to James. He might be able to look at the plans too and say, yeah, per NRCS, that should be fine for mitigation monitoring plan. And just, I'll reach out to him and show him what we have and maybe get his input as well. It's pretty simple, in my opinion. So I think the question is, should we just submit this week kind of with
Yeah, so the status is that Steve is waiting for some input from a consultant, an environmental consultant, and she hasn't been getting back to him. And so the question is, do we go ahead and just submit without her input? Because what's the worst that could happen? Well, it could get kicked back, but
But is that saving us the $2,000 to $3,000 or?
no,
So
no.
they're doing it. No, she's doing it free pro bono.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to pay the $3,000 regardless to submit
The permit.
the permit package, just because we all have to. Anyone that submits to the water board. So that's baked in. And then the question is, either from input from her, from our planning staff, or maybe from NRCS. Should we just move forward this week and just submit it just to get it into the system? My 2 cents is I think that's a good course of action.
Let's try that.
Yeah, because we still want to try to get this done before it really starts raining.
Right.
Right?
Exactly.
So every delay now is putting that in jeopardy.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
I think, yeah, but again, what's the worst that can happen? They'll just kick it back and then we'll have to deal with it. But
Right. Okay. Sounds good. We'll do.
okay.
Actually, one more question, I'm sorry. I missed the fire to burn the debris, estimated time-ish?
So good question. I just talked to the chief of the area and he pointed me to Bryce Munzer. So I'm going to try to meet with him this week. The last permits, once we had the permit is usually issued that day that you apply for it. And technically we already have a permit, I think, for that property. So I just have to meet with some staff from CAL FIRE to get their direction. And I'm guessing they're going to want someone to be there, or they're going to tell us to remove some more trees. And so we'll need the permission from the property owner to remove some more trees, one or the other. But the burning should occur within the next week and a half, I'm assuming. The last one took maybe a week-ish. Yeah, so.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so let's take public comment on 5.1.
Yes, we have one public comment. Rochelle Beerley, if you could please approach the podium, please.
I just wanted to ask for clarity on the water board and the finishing of the levee. So are we waiting for the water board still to give us approval? Or are we just now waiting for the so have we gotten over that hurdle and we're just waiting for the step that we're opting to bypass? That's what I wanted to ask.
I believe we still haven't submitted the application because we need this piece of it, but
Yeah?
Yeah. Correct. So the top, I'll just call it 8 feet, where the washout on that portion occurred, we need the permit approved from the water board to answer the question.
So we're no further than we were really since March.
Yeah, I would say that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, any other public comment on this agenda item?
There appears to be no further public comment.
All right, then we will move right along to 5.2, and this is an update on the status of the FEMA applications. So what do you have? Hopefully some good news for us?
A little bit. So yeah, FEMA reached out to us for the debris removal, and they are willing to, what they say, finalize the scope of work. Is the best way I can summarize it. There's 9 steps, and we're on step 8. And so I have to meet with our FEMA rep, and even though the last pile is not burnt, they said, well, we can finalize the scope so that it goes into the reimbursement review. So that was good. So FEMA reached out to us last week and said, let's schedule that. So I just have to schedule that with her. I'll do that this week as well. I think she reached out on Thursday of last week. And so, yeah, so that was a good step forward on the debris removal. On the levee repair, it actually has progressed through FEMA to what they call the document integrity unit, which is step also 8 of 9, I guess, 9 of 10, I don't know. And it's the DIU unit, so they just look at the project and see if the project's missing anything, or if it needs any more documents. And so then I think it goes to the reimbursement unit after that. So, but it is one step further than it was last month as well, which was the Emmy system, which we don't have to talk about. But so yeah, a little bit of progress on both of those by FEMA, so it's good.
Very good. Are there any comments or questions by the trustees? Is there any public comment?
There appears to be no public comment.
All right, then we will move on to 5.3. This is an update regarding grant and other funding opportunities. So we had talked before about the emergency watershed program and whether or not we were eligible for that. And I think you were going to reach out to James Booth, Steve, on that. Is there any movement there?
So I did call James and try to schedule a site visit. It hasn't occurred yet. So I will keep trying to schedule that. I did make my own site visit out there and walk the creek for a few reasons. But I haven't got James's eyes on that yet. And so I'll keep trying to do that. So, and that was just to hopefully get him to buy into the need for some grant funding and maybe that watershed program, like you mentioned, Michelle, so.
Were there any other grants that we were currently looking at? I don't think so at the moment.
Correct, yeah, not that I'm aware of, not at this juncture, so.
Okay, well, I have a little bit of an update. This isn't regarding a grant, but it would fall under the category of other funding opportunities. I did reach out to Joe Paul Gonzalez and Tom Slavich, who is the auditor and the tax assessor. That's who.
Correct.
Wait,
You got that
okay.
correct.
All right. And this would be, so I'm trying to schedule a meeting with some of these county folks to learn more about about what it takes to institute some sort of a parcel tax to be able to raise money that way, right? As what they call a special assessment. So obviously, we would have to talk about this in great detail if we wanted to do it. But I'm just trying to take the first steps to learning more about it, what it's about, and that sort of thing, what it would entail. And then it'll certainly show up on a future agenda so that we can talk about it in great detail. But I am trying to get more information about that. Are there any comments or questions from the trustees? Okay, is there any public comment on this?
Yes, we have a public comment. Rochelle Brearley, if you could please approach the podium.
I just wanted to add that I'll be attending via Zoom the Army Corps of Engineers San Francisco Division conference that they're hosting on Thursday, where there is said to be a lot of good connections to be made, grant opportunities, and this is on particular the levee repair. And I'll be searching, making connections for that for our district. And hopefully we can get to the bottom of, like we talked about, Michelle, whoever commissioned the levee system originally in our district, because we had talked about that at our offsite meeting. So maybe I'll get some answers there, but it sounds like a good meeting with a lot of good professionals and grant writers and money that might be available for us. We'll give you an update next time.
Thank you, Rochelle, for offering to do that.
Yeah, and on that note, I'm still looking at, Michelle and I spoke, probably a week ago. Unless it's in my imagination, I saw some old document at some point, I don't know if it was hard copy or not, of U.S. Army Corps had done some levee construction back in the 40s. I'll still look. I don't know if that was a hard copy or it was an electronic copy. It was a real old looking copy. But I did see something. I just got to find it. And I don't know. I actually looked. I'll keep looking. So the good news is something occurred with the Army Corps back in the 40s. I can't tell you what. That's all I have for you there.
Okay.
We'll keep looking. So.
All right. And then on the topic of networking activities or opportunities, also at the end of October 30th, they're having the next meeting of the Pajaro Compass Network Fall Stakeholder Meeting. So they had a meeting in April, Romus, that I was not able to attend. And this is, and maybe you have some info, Steve, about this Pajaro Compass Network, but I think it brings together groups of people, individuals and agencies that are working on issues related to the Pajaro watershed, of which we're a part, I think. Anyway, their fall meeting is October 30th, and it's going to be a meeting and field tour where it's from 8:45 to 12, followed by a networking lunch from 12 to 1. This fall's meeting is a field tour at the Pajaro River Agricultural Preserve, and it is this preserve is located near Fraser Lake Road and Bloomfield Avenue in Gilroy. So if anybody is interested in going to this, it's a Wednesday. I can forward the email if anybody is interested. Oh, wonderful. Okay, so Rochelle will be there. If any of the board members, I'd have to look at my schedule to see if I can spare the time on that day. But if anyone is interested, I can. Yeah. Okay, I will forward it. Okay, was there any other public comment on 5.3?
There appears to be no additional public comment.
All right, then we will move on to 5.4, update on request to modify the loan from San Benito County. And so basically, if you'll recall from last meeting, there was a discussion about whether we could ask the county to amend our agreement to allow us to use the leftover money. So they loaned us a certain amount of money in the expectation that we would be getting money from FEMA and that we could then pay it back. They authorized up to 1.6 million. It looks like the FEMA reimbursed repairs will come in under that amount. So the question is, would they authorize us to use that extra, which I believe right now is, you're estimating at 200,000? So last meeting, we talked about the fact that the loan agreement itself actually doesn't say that we have to use the money for FEMA reimbursed projects. So in theory, we could use the money for something that's not going to be reimbursed by FEMA. But the question is, do we have a viable, feasible outside funding source available? And at this point, it's all sort of speculative whether we have anything available that we could use to pay back that amount, right? That's beyond what FEMA is reimbursing. So since we do have these urgent repairs that need to be done, and hopefully prior to the rainy season, I asked Steve to get us on the agenda for the Board of Supervisors meeting, and he did that. So we are on the agenda for tomorrow morning. The meeting is at 9. We are agenda item number 2.2, I think. Yeah, 2.2. So I will be attending, while Steve will be doing a little staff presentation, and then I will be attending also to speak in favor of this. And so if anybody else can go and fill out a speaker card for this agenda item, or even, I guess, can you do this also via Zoom? Okay, so that's a possibility too, if you don't want to come down and be physically present. I think obviously the more people that speak in support of this, the more likely that the board is to grant our request. So that is the update there. Steve, did you have anything to add on this?
Well, part of my presentation is just a few photos of the Florix property where we're having some of the erosion occur. And so hopefully that'll help the discussion progress as well. But other than that, no, I think we'll just discuss with the board and see where it goes.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments? 2.2. Yeah. Which means we're number 2 on the regular agenda. So I guess that's good.
Yeah, probably about 9:15, 9:30, something.
Okay,
Around that
great.
time frame.
Hopefully it won't. And I don't anticipate it taking a long time, but who knows? One never knows with these meetings.
Correct.
Did you have any comments or questions?
So the meeting is tomorrow, 9 o'clock?
It is tomorrow morning here, right here. Yeah. Is there any public comment?
There appears to be no public comment.
Okay, then we will move right along. So the next agenda item is the somewhat awkwardly worded, discuss and approve expenditures of funds to repair certain areas of the levee in urgent need of repair. And it relates directly to the agenda item that we just talked about. My thought was that perhaps we could actually propose a motion to actually vote on whether we wanted to spend the money to go ahead and do the repair on, it's on the Florix property. It's what we've been talking about for months. Provided that the county approves our request tomorrow. So my thought was perhaps we could actually vote on that tonight so that we don't have to wait another month. But I want to find out from Sean, if he is on the line, whether we can do that.
Good evening. Yes. Yeah, you can do that. Yeah, you can make it contingent.
Great. Okay. So that was my idea. That way, if we vote on this tonight and we approve this, and then the Board of Soups approves our request tomorrow, then we could actually get started on this. So,
Correct. And since you're looking at me, I would recommend you keep it simple and just say, you know, we are asking for authorization to use up to the $200,000 at that location. I mean, this is for the three of you to discuss, obviously, you know, and not exceed that amount, not exceed the amount that the Board of Supervisors potentially will approve tomorrow. And I wouldn't put a dollar amount on it. I know we've talked about between 50,000 and 100,000, but the question is, how much do you three want to utilize of the remaining amount for the Florix? And just for you three to discuss, I guess, at this moment. So,
okay. Any thoughts or questions?
My thought is like how much of the 200,000 is going into that, and whatever's left over, what are we going to do with that if there are other areas that are also with weakened levies that also might need some attention, or what can we get with the $200,000?
right. So my opinion is, based on the area and the costs we've had at some other locations of riprap, you could spend up to 100,000 there. Maybe it's closer to 50. It's hard to tell until we get some contractor input, but I wouldn't think you'd use the full 200,000. So it could be 100,000 there and 100,000 to take your pick of a few other less urgent but still important locations. So perhaps a decision is utilize half the funds available for that location and utilize the second half, you know, at another location. So
Go ahead.
So I may not know too much about this, but my question is, if we were to put riprap throughout that whole entire section of the levee that we're looking at from Salipe to Lover's Lane, what kind of pricing would that be?
great question. It would be more than the funds available. I'll say that. I probably shouldn't put a price on it until I do some quantity takeoffs. But it'd be more than 200,000
Okay.
for the whole stretch.
Well, and also we have to keep in mind that what we're telling the Board of Supervisors is that this is urgently needed repair. Now, I guess you could make an argument that the riprap is urgently needed, but really we're just picking out the most urgent areas to shore up, so to speak, no pun intended, but shore up in preparation for this winter, right?
Correct. And per the sidewalk I did, and I just poked around a little bit, there is another location, believe it or not, on the other side of Lover's Lane Bridge on the south side. It's starting to kind of erode away there a bit as well, like literally on just opposite side of the bridge from where the Florix is. Just FYI, it's not as bad as the Florix, but it's starting to erode a bit as well. So I don't know. I'll just pause there. So.
And the other issue is, it is possible that tomorrow the Board of Supervisors they could approve the request to use the entire surplus. They could also limit it, right? They could say you could use this amount, this percentage, or this dollar amount, and no more.
Correct.
So, I would hate to say you've used half here and half there if we end up, the authorization is for less than 200,000. So maybe we need to just authorize you, Steve, to use the funds in the most urgently needed areas. Or we could simply authorize you to get bids. I don't know if that would delay things. I mean, you have to get bids anyway, right? So it's probably unlikely that before our next meeting, you would actually have contractors starting. Or am I wrong about that?
Well, yes and no. It's possible that we could get a bid and start in the next few weeks, but I don't want to predict the rain at all because I've heard 5 different stories on when it might rain. We could obviously get bids in the next month and come back here for the trustees' direction. As an emergency repair, we can start things. The district and the county could start things sooner. So if you were to say, the trustees, we authorize you to spend $50,000 for emergency repairs at the Floric property location and come up with bids on another location, maybe that's a good course of action. So.
You used the words as an emergency repair because now, next month is October, then we're going to hit November, December, it's holidays. And I would think that a lot of these construction companies or whoever's going to be doing the work are probably going to be out.
Yeah, around mid-November, by December 1st, usually, even if it's sunny weather, it's difficult to get contractors to do much in
So we
December.
basically have
we have,
1 month?
Yeah, we have October, November, if November's sunny. So a couple months probably. We're doing some paving in November because the contractors think it's going to be sunny in November. We'll see. So, we'll see. But yeah, I mean, supposedly we have sunshine for October. I'll leave it at that. I don't want to predict more than that. So.
Oh,
I have a comment. We have to thinking about something else. See, they start raining, and it's raining for a few days. They cannot bring equipment to the places. It's something else that we have to thinking. You know, everything is going to stop.
Okay, so what I'm hearing then is that we just need to go for this as quickly as we can. So we should just authorize both the bids and the work, I guess, or maybe put a dollar amount so that at least they can get started. I don't know.
Yeah, if I would suggest to the trustees that you consider authorizing some work to be done at the Florix property, and then you have to decide, you know, what limit of funding do you want to cap it at a certain amount and leave some for another location? That's probably something to consider. So.
Well, we could always, I mean, if it turns out, if we decide on an amount and it turns out that more is required, we can always vote on it again, right? And,
That's a good point,
And authorize additional funds, provided we have them, the funds, I mean.
Right, because chances are, even when contractors respond real quickly, it still takes them a few weeks to get equipment and crews and things. And by the time they start working, we probably have another board meeting and we could assess, well, it's not going to cost $50K, it's going to cost $80K or something to that effect, as you mentioned. So once they start and we get a better idea of how much we might be spending out there.
So I guess this motion has to both authorize you to get bids and me to sign a contract, right? Of course, if the contract is for more than 50,000, then I can't sign it, right?
Right, that's correct.
Yeah.
So We can make contracts up to a certain amount. We can say contractor X, the contract is for 50K to do X amount of work, and they'll just do that amount of work.
And then
You can
we'd
do
sign
change
another,
orders or
sign-
amendments
yeah.
after that, but yeah.
Yeah.
So,
All right, I'm going to take a shot at a motion since this has gotten rather complicated. So I move that the board authorize the use of any surplus funds approved by the Board of Supervisors in the following manner: to authorize county staff to get bids and authorize the board president to enter into a contract for repairs of certain areas of the levee on the Florix property up to an amount of $50,000. How does that sound? Is it?
that's, I don't know, Sean, you want to be private? From a public works standpoint, that's sufficient.
Okay, Sean, did I get everything I needed to in there?
I think so. Yeah, I think that works. Yeah. Mhm.
Okay, so that's the motion. Is there a second?
I second that motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? All right, the motion carries. Except that I didn't ask for any public comment. Oh. Do we need to re-vote, Sean, or can I just take public comment now?
I would revote. Yeah, take public comment and then revote.
Okay, all right.
I'm afraid, yes.
Yeah, I got a little ahead of myself. Okay, let's take the public comment.
Rochelle Brearley, if you could please approach the podium.
I just wanted to know, maybe I'm a little bit confused, but with the continued repairs, what role will the California Water Board play with us being able to move forward with levee repairs, since we're stopped right now from them?
Are you talking about this new repair that we're, okay.
Do they play a continual role? Or is this just kind of a one-time stop?
That's a good question, Steve.
So it's, I'll reach out to them, but for emergency repairs, they act differently than for ongoing project type things. So we won't be offering a mitigation planting plan or any of those type of things. We're going to say this is an urgent need, and the permitting agencies act differently when it's an emergency versus, I'll say, non-emergency. So the answer is I'll reach out, see if we need to do anything special, but we've done emergency repairs before. And this is, I would say an emergency. So to get this one part repaired before the levee just has some big issues, so.
Right, but I think the difference is that we're trying to cross all the Ts and dot all the I's for FEMA.
Right, for
With
reimbursement.
it,
They
right,
have certain
so-
requirements when you want reimbursement. We're
Right.
not going to be asking anybody for reimbursement on this one. Hopefully at some point, we'll get some grant funding or get tax assessments or something and pay back the county at a later date, right? But so
Yes.
that's the theory, so.
Okay. Is there any other public comment?
There is no additional public comment.
Okay, so now let me see if I can remember what it was that I said. I move that the board authorizes the use of surplus loan funds that are approved for use by the Board of Supervisors to use those funds in the following manner: that we authorize county staff to obtain bids, and authorize the board president to sign a contract for the repair of certain areas of the levee on the Florex property in an amount not to exceed $50,000. Okay, is there a second?
I second that motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, so the motion carries again. All right, let's move on now to 5.6. Discuss and approve the levee cleanup by the California Conservation Corps. So last meeting, we talked about getting bids from the CCC, and we did get actually some quotes. So Steve, I'll let you explain that.
We did, and if the CMAP folks could put the presentation on, it's just the slideshow. Thank you so much. So let's see, here we go. Before we jump into that, which will be the second item, I just did want to provide you an update. CHEER, which is an acronym for a nonprofit group that cleans up trash out of creeks. They actually walked all the way from Casa de Fruta on Pacheco Creek all the way down to the Pajaro River
No.
per our requests from this trustee board and the public. And good news, bad news. Good news is they said there was not a lot of trash, actually. And so it's really not worth their efforts and time to clean up trash. However, they did find 48 to 50 tires, some small tires, some big tires throughout that stretch, and they mapped them with GPS coordinates. And so they are going to proceed to clean some of those up on their own time and effort. But the tires, that's not really a volunteer type thing, especially more like they're big tires that I've seen. So they found a lot of tires, but they're going to progress on their own timeline. And they said they would try to clean those up as best they could, as soon as they could. They have a couple other things they're doing at the time, but they really didn't, quote unquote, found almost no trash throughout that whole stretch. So I don't know if the last storm events kind of washed it all down, and I don't know, but they did make the effort. So back over to California Conservation Corps. You're correct that they did provide us with the crew size, and they gave us an option of 1 week or 2 weeks. And so for 12 of their staff workers, which includes a supervisor, they could be in the creek at a cost of $13,000 per week. And what that means is they will only be able to, in a good way, take out what they can carry out by when they have small chainsaws or small pruning shears and things that they can take out by hand and put them on the creek banks, i.e. there won't be any machinery, which is typical on most of their projects. Sometimes they have small machinery, sometimes they don't. And so it's $13,000 per week. I believe, as you noted, Michelle, that they said they have availability for either 1 week or 2 weeks. So it's either $13,000 or $26,000. And they kind of left the ball in our court if we want to utilize our staff, is the way I interpreted the email that I think you're CC'd on. So, yeah. So that's the status on California Conservation Corps. So. And on that note, when I went out to the creek, there's really, I couldn't see a lot of flowing water. There's just standing water, perhaps from the groundwater table, but it's not really flowing. Good news about that is, if we have continued hot weather for the next few weeks, it should dissipate a little bit and water level will go down a little. Still a little bit wet, but I think there might be some areas where they could actually get in and remove some of the debris. But I didn't go far. I kind of looked around the Lover's Lane area a little bit back and forth, and then I had to go to another meeting. But looks like there's some areas they can get to, and I will say they've done some other things for us, and for a full week, they're pretty productive. They're very productive, I should say, for as far as access and things. If they can get access and get into places, I think it is a worthwhile expenditure of funds for the 13,000. So.
Cheer did come up to my house and left their card, and they said, "Good job, your creek is clean."
Hey, really? Funny. That's funny.
Yeah, I wasn't there, but the boys said, "Yeah, they said our creek was clean." It's like, okay. So the tires, did they happen to tell you where the tires are? Because my thought is that whoever's doing drive-bys and they just dump it off on the bridges, but I'm not sure if that's how it happens.
They did not say the location. They said they
No.
mapped the locations, but they just said they found 48 to 50 tires through that whole stretch. It was a pretty long stretch, actually.
Yeah,
So
it is.
I don't know if it was in the creek or in the creek banks, or I don't know the exact locations.
So then CCC, if they were to be going to the basin of the creek, so a lot of the brush that has grown into trees, I mean, we're talking huge diameters. So they're no longer brush, it's trees. So if CCC can't remove those and they're right in the middle of a waterway, who's going to be able to remove those then?
Well, unfortunately, we talked about before, living things in creeks, you need like a stream bed alteration agreement, or you need the governor to make some proclamation like he did last winter. What California Conservation Corps, they would be getting rid of the dead branches and trees and getting those out of the creek that aren't really habitat. But you're right, the growies and things in the creek, they won't be able to do much about that.
So they're a threat for us then.
The
Yeah.
growies in the creek are a threat to creek flows. Yes,
Yeah.
you are correct. So.
But would it be correct to say that we need to get rid of the dead stuff anyway?
That is correct.
And that would probably be done first in a lot of situations, or at least concurrent with, even if we had authority and means to actually, get rid of trees.
Yeah, that's basically what we did on the previous debris cleanup. It was basically just dead, piled up branches and things that, created a dam and correct. So.
And would removing, with the understanding that there's still like a forest growing there. I know because the creek runs right behind our house, so I know it's all like a forest back there. But would removing at least the dead stuff, would that improve the situation at least somewhat? I mean, it would still have to go around the trees, but.
I think it's worthwhile, at least for a solid week. I'm sure they could find enough within 1 week's time, which is, I believe, 5 days. Great. I wish I knew if it was 5 days or 7 days, but I'm sure they could keep themselves busy for that amount of time, just removing dead branches and things out of the creek. So if it's dry enough in spots, just seems to be in some spots. So.
Okay, let's call for public comment before I forget to do that again.
Yes, we have one public comment. Rochelle Beerley, if you could please approach the podium.
I just wanted to give a little bit of feedback on the stuff in the creek that does grow, because we had that section that was cleaned out by a crew. And I would say you could probably concur to that it's almost looks like it's all grown back. And in particular, those water reeds or bamboo style things. I was wanting to look into, maybe we could ask Steve or the county if they're aware of like a grant to remove those invasive structures. Because I think I've heard of it and I think that it does exist. I think that would be a great suggestion. We had a crew come out and one of us did it, went out with the weed whacker and tried to knock it down to, keep a little bit of clarity there. And weeks later, it's already back. And I had talked to a few of the board members here about grazing, some light little animals in the creek that like to munch on those things to clean it out. But we definitely need to come up with a maintenance plan of sorts in order to get a handle on this. And Valley Water District in particular, they use chemicals, which I don't think we should do. I'm surprised that's even allowed, but it is. And so the feedback is that once it's cleaned out, it continues to just grow right back. So. Yeah.
Did you have any comment on or response to that, Steve? Or
I'll confirm. The good news is, I think all that dead branches and debris that was removed, it kind of probably let in sunshine and maybe some nutrients and some things. And as per the public comment, so there's new growy things occurring now that sunshine actually can see the dirt and what was underneath. And it's starting to look greener now, unfortunately. So, which, that's what creeks do, right? So, but yeah.
is there any other public comment?
There appears to be no further public comment.
Okay, so what do we do about this then? Do we want to take a vote? Is there a motion to approve this levy cleanup, to spend $13,000 for 1 week? Do we want to further discuss it at a later meeting? We would be using so we have about, what is it, $50,000 in an account. So we'd be using some of that money that has built up over probably decades, right?
I think my only concern is that if we were to put in CCC in there for 13,000 to try and remove some shrubs and all that stuff, that's all going to come back again. I think it's a expense that I don't think.
Okay. I guess the question would be, so obviously that stuff needs to be removed at some point. But I guess the question is it better to spend the money, remove it now, or come up with a more comprehensive plan? Remove it only when we have a plan for ongoing maintenance. I guess that would involve money and permits, right?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Well, so I guess we don't have to take a vote if there is no motion. If no one moves to take a vote, then I guess we can just table it for a while.
I think we should hold off on it. I know it's kind of hard to hold off, especially right now, because we really need to work on the levy. But to spend $13,000, and if rain comes around, and that's all going to grow back. It's going to grow back again, and where was the investment on the $13,000 that just went in? And are we going to be spending another 13 next year, and so forth and so forth?
Okay. Well, then I guess we're going to have to be thinking about a plan then, right? I mean, the idea is that we want to be able to have regular maintenance, but also, more importantly, not just remove the dead stuff, but have a plan for actually controlling the growth of the new stuff, either by chemical or other means, some means, I guess. So Okay, well, maybe we need to work on money first. It always comes back to money.
I know.
Always. Okay, I guess we can move on then. All right, so we are now moving to 5.7, which is an update on outreach. And so we do have a little bit of an update here. Last week, I met with some of the members of our advisory board. And in our discussion, it was suggested that we think about sending out a postcard to all of the property owners, all the properties in the district, both letting them, well, inviting them to the meetings, but also letting them know what we've been doing, right? So that they know that what's been going on. So Rochelle, do you want to explain? Well, so Rochelle came up with a draft of something that we could possibly put on a postcard. She was thinking, I don't know if you recall, a couple weeks ago, we got those yellow postcards that were advertising the mattress sale at the high school. Do you remember that? Yeah, so about that size, right? And maybe just bullet points about what we've done. So in front of you, you should have Rochelle's suggested, her draft of what could go on this postcard. So first, it says your property is in the Pacheco Stormwater District. So that's good, right? Let's see. So then it talks about our meeting, when we meet, and encourages people to get involved. And then it goes into some accomplishments. Performed major clean out of Pacheco Creek in district lines and in progress rebuild of blown levee in district lines. And then it talks about some upcoming projects. And then it says again, has information about the meeting and where we meet and when. So I think this is a great start. I think we probably don't need, I think we should probably get rid of the first part that talks about the meetings. I think we only need to have that up once on the postcard, maybe at the end. So I think we should go just your property is in the Pacheco Stormwater District, ! I like that. And then go right to what the district has accomplished. So okay, so I don't know, Steve, do you have this in front of you? You probably don't. I don't know if, I'd like maybe some comment from staff about the accomplishments and how we've worded that, and is that a good way to word it, or?
So are we reviewing it on the fly, or should we mark it up and change notes at the end of the meeting?
Maybe that would be better to mark it up. I don't.
Okay. But yeah, I think it's the concept's great. I mean, this is who we are and who you are. This is what we have been accomplishing, and however, there's more work to do. So please, help the 4 to 10 people that actually are currently making an effort as residents of the district of 80 people. So
Yeah.
I think it's a great idea. And yeah, I can work with staff. We can mark it up a little bit more and
Okay.
get it back to you. So.
Yeah, that would probably be a good idea. So any comments from the trustees?
I think it's fine.
Okay, well, so we'll work on this and maybe by next meeting, we'll have some actual like language that we can approve to go out on a postcard. Yeah, I think it is definitely time to tell people what we've been doing. Especially if at some point we're going to be asking them to approve a tax. We need to show them what we've been doing and what is possible if we partner with the county on this. So,
Is it going to be just a plain colored card? Or will there be a picture in there showing what the whole place looks like all flooded?
I think everyone remembers what it would look
Yeah, I
like
know.
flooded, but I don't know.
But I mean, there's some new people
Yeah.
in the
Yeah,
neighborhood
that
that
is
don't
true.
know.
That is true.
Yeah, you could probably, I would suggest have a flooding picture, but you could also show the before and after, just the debris removal, because it was a big change that you all have accomplished, you know,
Yeah,
so.
that's a good idea. Pictures, it would be great. And we can make it an eye-catching color, I suppose. I don't know how much that would be, but okay, great. Public comment.
There appears to be no public comment.
All right, well then I guess we can move on because we're not going to vote on anything right now. We'll just continue to work on this. Okay, so then the last item is future discussion of future agenda items. So what would the trustees like to see on the next agenda? Okay, is there any public comment?
Yes, we have one public comment, Madison Mitchell from San Benito County OES. If you could please approach the podium.
Good evening, everyone. I am Madison Mitchell. I'm with San Benito County Office of Emergency Services. I'd like to recommend a future agenda item or two. As we are going into the wet season, my office will be hosting a winter weather brief. So I would like to do a brief with you guys with that update when it is available. We don't currently have a date yet with our national weather rep, but once we do, I can make that known to you and invite you as well, hopefully, if there's a Zoom option. I'm not exactly sure what that meeting will look like at this point. It would also be my recommendation to do another presentation on alert and warning systems and platforms here in San Benito County. We have updated our alert and warning systems just a little bit over the last year. Just to make you guys aware, we have integrated SBC Alerts, which is a highly functional, like living platform, which has zone evacuations, as well as there is a map, a link to an interactive map, which outlines everyone's zone in the county. And if there is an evacuation or an impact to that zone, it will be highlighted on that link. So that is available to the public. So potentially those two recommendations for a future agenda item is the recommendation of the Office of Emergency Services.
Thank you, Madison. Good to see you again. The winter weather brief. So you were suggesting that you could come to our meeting and talk about that.
My suggestion is I could request our National Weather Service rep to come give a presentation or create a presentation specific for your guys' jurisdiction. If that is not a possibility, then I would be more than happy to brief out the update in which we're given at the countywide level and our other neighboring jurisdictions as well.
And do you think that you would have the information by our next meeting, which is the late October? What is it, the third week of October? I don't know what day is it? Okay, so it is late. October 28th, I guess, is our next meeting.
Unfortunately, we have not been able to select a date with our National Weather Service rep just yet. He's our regional rep, so he's quite busy this time of year.
Yeah.
So once I know and a little bit more about that, I'll make sure to give you guys that information. And again, potentially even invite you guys as well to that meeting. That being said, if you're interested in potentially requesting a jurisdictional meeting specific to your guys' region, I'm more than happy to put in that request to our National Weather Service rep to see if he could potentially give us a presentation himself or provide specific data.
I think that would be a good idea. I remember last year there was that town hall meeting. That was actually in September, wasn't it?
Yes, I believe so.
And there was somebody from the National Weather Service, and he was already telling us, giving us projections for what kind of year we were going to have. So, yeah, if they're willing to come, and even virtually, right? They don't have to come in person, but if they could give us a short Zoom presentation, that would be great.
And would you be interested in getting the next meeting, the late October meeting?
Sure, if it's possible.
Okay, I will reach out to my rep and see if there is a rep available who can create a presentation and either give it himself or if I can be available to give it on his or her behalf.
Great. All right, and then we can be in contact.
Yeah.
And see if that's going to work. So, all right. Are there any other questions for Madison? No. Okay. Great. All right.
I was just wondering, Madison, since you're here, I mean, we're in our own little world, and in Hollister area, where is the most active flooding area when it does tend to flood? Do you have that information?
I'm likely going to ask Steve to answer that question on my behalf. I do not have the historical data on me, but I know in regards to the Office of Emergency Services for the county, our most activations from an Emergency Operations Center stance, as well as a FEMA reimbursement or a disaster response project, has been in your guys' jurisdiction in that Lover's Lane area. While we get localized flooding all throughout the county, it is relatively minor in comparison, but I will let Steve respond.
Yeah, I concur with Madison's assessment. And if anybody wants, I can later, offline, I think give my email address. There's just a FEMA flood map of our county, and Lover's Lane, as Madison noted, is the area that usually experiences those issues, and downstream as well, not, by Soap Lake, Fraser Lake, and then even over towards Miller Slough, as you go towards Paro, they have some flooding issues as well. So it's not just Pacheco Creek, but that's definitely one of the primary areas. And then other than that, there's a few creeks that have experienced some issues. One's off near Santa Ana Road where that creek crosses, that has some flooding periodically. But so just reach out to me if you want any mapping or anything. So.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Madison. Is there any other public comment?
There appears to be no further public comment.
All right. So then all that's left is to adjourn the meeting. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I motion that we adjourn this meeting of September 23rd.
Is there a second?
I second that.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
No.
No. Okay. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you. We'll see you all October 28th. Thank you.
So if you look at the map,